So yesterday we were talking about confusion matrix, and we were looking at different evaluation matrices in which we usually use in the machine learning with the artificial intelligence systems. So we were at the confusion matrix, which we said that it summarizes the overall predictions of your model, how well your model is performing, what are the correct predictions by the model, what are the incorrect predictions by the model. All this is summarized using this particular confusion matrix. So this also helps in calculating various other parameters. Let's say I have accuracy. So accuracy, the formula to calculate accuracy is this. So you have the TP and TN values divided by every other value that is there in the matrix. So this is the formula for accuracy. So that's how you calculate the accuracy. Then if you want to classify, if you want to calculate the misclassification rate, the formula or the error rate, the formula is equivalent to 1 minus accuracy, which is very obvious. Then third, if you want to calculate the recall. So recall is also known as sensitivity or the true positive rate. So this is known as true positive rate or sensitivity. So if you want to calculate the recall, the formula is this. Now if you look at this formula, it is Tp, which is this parameter, divided by Tp plus Fn, which is this particular row. So this formula recall tells you, if you look at the definition of recall here, it tells you what proportion of actual positives were correctly identified. So since this column, this particular row, it deals with the actual yes values, the values which were actually yes. So we want to see out of the actual positive values or the actual yes values, how many were correctly identified. Because this column is the one which tells you that predicted value was also yes and actual value was also yes. So how many values were correctly identified that way? So out of the total actual yes value, how many were correctly identified or correctly predicted by the model? Now, if you look at the precision, which is the next parameter, so precision basically, now if you see the definition also here, precision is TP upon TP plus FP. So this is TP again. Let me just change the color. So TP is again this part and FP is this part. So it means it is talking about this particular value or this particular column. So TP or this precision value tells you that what proportion of positive identifications was actually correct. Means whatever are the positive predicted values. So this column, it shows the predictions basically. So the values that were predicted yes by the model, how many of them were were actually belonging to the class yes. So this is the difference between the two. This tells that out of the actual yes value, how many were correctly predicted, and this tells you out of all the predictions, how many were actually yes. So we are basically dealing with the positive identifications in this case. Now comes other parameter, like what could be the false positive rate if we want to see the positive, if we want to consider on the next class, on the negative class. So before that, after recall and precision, we have another parameter which is known as the F1 score, F measure score, which utilizes both the recall and precision. So we generally use these two parameters, accuracy and F measure, because F measure any which ways is incorporating your recall and precision, both the terms, both the values. So it will obviously it will be taking recall and precision into its consideration and giving you some value f1, some f1 score. So that's why we usually take F-score and accuracy as the important matrices for our model. Now, we have various other matrices also, like if you want to calculate the true negative rate, if you want to calculate the false positive rate. So these are the formulas for them. So true negative rate is also known as specificity. So these are the different evaluation matrices which we use. Now the question is, why do we need all these matrices for the model? Why can't only accuracy, or let's say maybe the F scores, are enough for our model? So let's have a look. So let's see, we only calculate the precision and recall for our model and do not calculate the accuracy for the model. Now if you see these two matrices here, so these are the confusion matrix of two different classifiers. Okay, these are the predictions by two different models. So if you see here in this particular case, the true negative value here is 400, whereas the true negative value here is 0. Now if you calculate the value of precision and recall for both these values, for both these confusion matrix, you will get the same value of precision and recall, which is this. Okay, but if you see the results, if you see these two models, they are from different data sets, because again you can see that the number of samples, the number of samples are also not equal. So even if the data set is same, you can get the same precision and recall values for two different data sets. However, they have completely different behavior. In this particular case, or let's say in this particular case, the true negative rate is very high. The model has correctly identified the true negative samples, but in this particular case, the true negative rate is 0. The model is not able to predict any value, any true class which belongs to this no class. So in this particular case, the true negative or the negative recognition rate is 0. But however, if you calculate the precision and recall, it will be same. So this will not give the clear picture of what is the problem in this particular confusion matrix, or in this particular model basically, because precision and recall, if you look at their formula, they are not utilizing the true negative value in their formula. They are not using it. So that's why we'll switch to another parameter with say accuracy. So if we use accuracy, you can see accuracy is using each and every parameter here. So here in this particular case, maybe the if you calculate the accuracy of both the models, of both these data set, you will be getting different accuracy, and the accuracy of this particular confusion matrix will be very less as compared to this particular confusion matrix, which shows the exact picture that obviously there's something wrong with this particular model. Now, why don't we only concentrate on accuracy, and why do we use the precision and recall or F1 score? So there are issues with accuracy also. Let's say if you take any two class problem, if you take any problem where you can where let's say there are only 10,000 samples, and out of those 10,000 samples, 9990 samples belongs to one class and 10 samples belongs to another class. Now, if even if the model predicts everything to be in class 0, or everything to be in just one class, which means the model is not learning anything. It is just randomly predicting every data set into this class 0. So if that happens, the accuracy is still 99.9%, which in this case is a big issue, because the model is actually not learning anything. Still, it is able to get almost 99.9% accuracy. So again, in this case, accuracy is very misleading parameter, because it is not detecting any of the class 1 sample. This is as good as a no skill classifier, because it doesn't have any skill. It just randomly predicts everything to be in class 0. So if you calculate the precision recall value of this particular case, that will be very different of each and every class. So you can also calculate the precision and recall for different classes. So you will see that the rates are very different. The precision and recall rates will be very different in this case. So then you can detect that there is something problem. So then you might see that there is some problem with these results that model is predicting. That's why you are getting this particular issue. Now again, in this particular case, you have these two different matrices. The classifier is giving you same 60% accuracy in both the cases. So again, accuracy here in this particular case is same, but if you look at the individual predictions, that is completely different, right? Because here maybe the left side, the positive recognition rate is less, whereas in this particular case the positive recognition is more. Similarly, in this case the negative recognition rate is high, here it is less. So if we use precision and recall in both these cases, we might have get, or we will get different behavior or different results for both positive and negative classes. Thereby we can see that which particular classifier is classifying each of these class in which particular way. So all that's why these two parameters, accuracy and F1 score, which indirectly includes precision and recall, becomes very important. Very basic thing. Even when you have built your machine learning models, you might have always used these two things. Accuracy to any which ways people use. F1 score has also become very important parameter to evaluate your model, to see whether it is behaving correctly or how it is behaving. It is very important. Now there could be, again, as I said, apart from that we can have various other rate also, like we can calculate the false positive rate. This is the formula. Then you can go ahead and calculate various other matrices also, to see how exactly your model is behaving. Now next is the ROC graphs. Now basically, apart from calculating confusion matrix, or maybe precision recall, F1 score, so on this, we also look for something known as ROC graphs, which are the receiver operating characteristics. So these graphs basically first help in giving different threshold to you. So suppose if I have a normal sentiment classifier example, and I want to classify a text into maybe positive or negative. So let's say I keep a threshold as zero point 0.5, that if the value of the text is greater than zero point 0.5, it will be classified as positive. If it is less than zero point 0.5, it will be classified as negative. But again, how am I coming to this zero point 0.5 value? How am I setting this zero point 0.5 threshold? It might happen that if I set this threshold as 0.6, the model could have behaved differently and maybe more accurately. How can I exactly get into this zero point 0.5 value according to a data set? So this ROC curves, these are very important in finalizing your threshold, as it gives the behavior of your model at different threshold. So let's say I want to select threshold, let's say zero point 0.5 or zero point 0.6 or zero point 0.7, which for any particular task. So which threshold should be used? That is help, that ROC curves helps us in this particular case. So at every threshold, it calculates, or it gives you a confusion matrix which summarizes how your model is behaving in each of these thresholds. And maybe the threshold where your model is behaving in a very good way, you will be selecting that particular threshold as the final one. So if I have this particular problem with me, let's say, if you look at this particular example, so here the red dots signifies that the person has the heart disease, and the green dot signifies that the person do not have the heart disease. And if you look at the confusion matrix here, so you can see some values have been calculated with the help of this confusion matrix. Before that, you see this line here, this dotted line, which is the threshold value. So here threshold of 0 is being selected. Okay, they have selected threshold to be 0. So let's say everything that is above this threshold, they have said that the person has the heart disease for every sample that is above this threshold. Okay, that the person is having a heart disease. So in that particular case, and these values that are marked, that are the actual values. And the according to the model says that everything that is above this threshold, in that person has the heart disease. So in this case, model predicted each and every sample to be in the heart disease. Model said that everyone here has the heart disease. However, according to the actual values, only 4 persons are there that were having the heart disease, but model predicted everything above 0 to be in the heart disease. So obviously when you look at the confusion matrix, this particular column will be 0, because model is predicting everything to be in the heart disease. So according to this, everything here in this particular column, in this particular row, it will be 0. Every prediction will be here in this particular row. So if you see here, the heart disease are the one. Now if you see this column, this is the one that the model predicted the person to be in the heart disease, and the person is also having the heart disease. So that are the 4 samples, 1, 2, 3, 4. So again 4 is listed here, and again 4, rest of the 4 are the one where the model predicted them to be the heart, to have the heart disease, but they do not have the heart disease. So these are again these 4 values. So if you calculate the false positive rate and true positive rate, you will get certain values here. Okay, now I will see that, in this particular case, maybe the false positive rate, or maybe the false positive rate I am getting is very high. Okay, maybe the true positive rate could be good, but the false positive rate, let's say, is very high. So I am not satisfied with this threshold. So let me move this threshold. Now I have moved this threshold slightly above at this particular point. And before that, whatever value I got from false positive rate and true positive rate, there will be some value. I have plotted that value. Let's say I got 1 here. So I got false positive rate as 1 and true positive rate as 1. I plot this point here in the graph, that is at this particular location. That at the 0 threshold, I got this particular value. Now I increase my threshold to this, and I say everything that is above this threshold, though they have the heart disease according to the model prediction. So again, if you see this particular column here has heart disease, so person who has the heart disease, which is this, and the model also predicted them to be model also predicted that they have the heart disease, are 4. These 4. These 4 are the ones that actually have the heart disease, and model also predicted that they have heart disease. So we have 4 value here. And the one where the model predicted them to be to have the heart disease, but they do not have the heart disease, are these 2 samples. So we have 2 value here. And then below, if you see below this threshold, 2 values are there, 2 dots are there, where the model predicted them to be not having that model predicted that they don't have the heart disease. However, they were also not having the heart disease according to this value. So those are the 2 samples here. So again, we got another confusion matrix based on this threshold. We calculated the true positive and false positive rate from this confusion matrix, and we again plot this value here. Okay, at 0.5 and 1, I got value here. So obviously, here at this particular threshold, you see the false positive rate is decreased, because earlier it was 1, here it is decreased. So this threshold is obviously better than the previous one. Now you again increase the threshold, and you keep on increasing that threshold till it reaches the maximum point. So again, you will be getting different values that way. Let's say at this location, then at this location, and so on. So let's say at this particular location we have 0 as 0 false positive rate and 0.75 as the true positive rate. So now the false positive rate is 0. So maybe this particular threshold or this particular value we got is very good out of the rest threshold that we select. So maybe I will be finalizing this particular value or this particular threshold for my actual uh, for my actual model. So that's how you calculate the threshold, or you finalize the threshold for your model. And similarly, you will be calculating the threshold and you will be connecting the dots. So the dots are connected, and that's how you get different ROC curves. So obviously all these things you can't do manually that way. That's why we have these ROC curves. They automatically uh, gives you or give you all these threshold values. Then you can easily select which threshold is better for you, which rate you want to maximize, which rate you want to minimize, and accordingly you can see maybe B threshold you want to choose or C threshold you want to choose, and you can that threshold you can take for your final model. So this is how you can make the different thresholds and make different ROC curves. There is another parameter which is area under the curve, which evaluates the different ROC curves. So we can have this one curve, the red curve is one curve, this blue curve is yet another curve. So all these curves you can see which particular ROC curve is better by using the area under the curve value. So it summarizes, let's say there will be one value of this ROC curve, one value of this ROC curve. So it compares the different ROCs. So because let's say you are working with 3-4 different classifiers, you want to make an ROC curve for each one of them, and you want to evaluate which particular ROC curve is better. So for that you can use the area under the curve matrix to evaluate the different classifiers. Now, according to these, as the ROC curves we discussed, we also have the precision recall curves also. I won't go into so much details with them. So, since the ROC curves, they use the true positive rate and the false positive rate. The precision recall curve shows the trade-off between the true positive rate and the positive predicted value rate, which is this positive predicted value means the precision. So it summarizes or it calculates the precision and recall values. So if you look at the ROC curves, they are plotted between the precision and recall values. Okay, so these precision recall curves are majorly used for imbalanced data set. The data sets which are not balanced, for them we use the precision recall curve to see how our model is behaving or reacting to this imbalanced data sets. Whether in many cases we might not have enough samples for a particular class. Even if we try hard, we are not able to get a particular, maybe I am using 10 different classes in my particular problem. Let's say I want to predict the movie genre. So for that I can have comedy as one class, I can have again thriller as yet another class, maybe happy as one another class, and so on. And then I can have a sci-fi, science fiction as yet another class. So in this particular case, let's say I have horror as one another class. So in this particular case, maybe I can have enough sample for comedy movie, thriller movie, horror movie, but maybe for science fiction I'm not having so much samples. So even if I try hard, I'm not able to find so many samples for this particular category. So again, either I will remove this particular category from the data set, but again I don't want to remove this. I want to see how my model is behaving for this particular genre of movie. So for this, again, even if this class has not so much samples as compared to rest of the classes, I will use some other evaluation matrices to see how well my model is behaving for this particular class. So for that you can use the precision recall curves because they are generally good for imbalanced data set, and they can tell you that whether your model is able to learn the features from this class or not, or whether the model is biased to any class or not. So for that we use these precision recall curves. So again, each and every curve you already know that sklearn provides you the libraries and everything. You can directly use your classifier and get the predictions of your model, and you can feed those predictions into the precision recall curve library that is already provided by the sklearn, and you can get the different precision recall curves. And same thing goes for the ROC curves also. You can directly use the sklearn library to get the different ROC curves for your model. Now, these were the some of the matrices which are commonly used when you evaluate your model. So the idea is to see how well your model is behaving to different values. Let's say we looked at we are not restricting ourselves only to accuracy. We are trying to find other parameters like precision and recall to see whether how is the true negative rate, how is the true positive rate of our model. Then we are going ahead and we are seeing that what if the model has imbalanced data set. In this that particular case, maybe we go for precision recall curve and see how well they are behaving, or what is the exact nature of our classifier that way. So everything here which we are using is just because to see whether there is any biasness or whether there is any problem in our model or in our classifier. So these are the some of the basic things which is expected from every developer, every engineer to use in their model. Again, if you have used if you have implemented any machine learning task, you might have used, I think, majorly every evaluation matrices to see how well your model is behaving. So apart from that, obviously we saw there are many transparency explainability tools which big companies are using to explain their models. So earlier we used to stick to only these evaluation matrices, but then we were using many visualization techniques also. As you remember, I explained you about the heat maps. I told you about the heat maps, some visualizations, the word level visualization, how words are being visualized, and so on. So the idea is to remove the bias from the algorithm as much as possible. Now there are some blindless algorithms. So these blindless algorithms, let's say if you remember the task where we discussed that how the recruiting tool that was being used by Amazon was biased, and it was biased towards women. So what can be done in that particular case? So maybe in that particular case, you can remove the information like maybe the gender or race or age of the applicant. Let's say I try to remove these information so that the model is not affected by them. But again, it might not be possible that even if I am removing all these variables, there might be certain variables which is known as latent variables. Okay, so these variables, they indirectly affect the performance of the model by inducing biasness in them. So maybe by using the specific variables like gender, race, and age, I plan not to include all these variables in my model because they might create biasness. But it might happen that indirectly these variables are dependent on some latent variables, and because of these latent variables, there is biasness that is being included in the model. So let's see this. So I already explained the recruiting tool. Let's say we want to predict the recidivism So in this case, if I want to predict the recidivism, so this means what are the chances of a person who has committed crime or who has done anything offend to again commit a particular crime or do anything wrong again. So in recidivism, so if we want to see what is the rate or how much is the probability that a particular person who is committing a crime, there is a chance for that person to commit that particular offense or crime again. So let's say if I want to develop a model for this particular case, now I see that there is a much higher rate of false positive when you talk about the African American than the white population. So I saw that maybe my model is biased towards maybe the African American for predicting recidivism. Now, however, when I see the parameters that are affecting my model, I did not use any parameter of race where the model could get the idea that this particular person is African American or belongs to the white population and so on. So let's say I have I made a set of 137 questions to prepare for this particular analysis, but I saw in my questions they were no topic that was related to race, or there was no parameter race that could have directed the model that this particular person is of African American and this is white population, and then the model could see that African American has the high recidivism rate, so maybe more false positives towards this. However, when I again researched, I saw there were some latent variables that are indirectly affecting the performance of my model and inducing the biasness. How? Maybe there is a column of divorce rate that is there in the questionnaire, and according to the analysis, so there is one analysis that was done by Rayleigh in 2015, where he proved that the divorce rate among the African American is very high as compared to the white population. So I saw indirectly the model somehow learned this particular thing, the divorce rate thing, and it is affecting this to it is affecting this, and it is giving me false positive rate for the recidivism, that the model is learning that maybe the people who have the high divorce rate, they are the one who are maybe who have the chance to commit any particular crime again. So that's how the biasness or the false positives were directing towards the African American, whereas we cannot think any which ways that why the model is giving these results. So this is just an example how maybe a particular behavior of the model is affected by other latent variables which we cannot even assume, or which we cannot even think are will be affecting the performance of the model. So you have to see, it's not only the data set which might be wrong, it might be the other, you can say, other parameters or other hidden information, other latent variables which might be indirectly affecting the performance of your model and creating biasness in the data. That's why it becomes very difficult for the people to see how, I mean, to see why their model is not performing up to the mark, or why there is so much bias in the model, because according to them they did everything correct, but still they could see biasness in their model. So this was one of the example where you want, where let's say Tamira is planning to build a messaging app. Now she wants to be fully aware that whether her particular app that she is developing has bias or not. So let's say she planned to build a messaging app where she want to use the text embedding models to give users automatic replies when they receive a message. So she want to build an app where, let's say, if the user gets any message on their phone, she can automatically suggest the automatic reply to the user, and user automatically selects those reply and replies to the person. So she planned to generate a set of candidate replies. So let's say you have a question, you have a message from on your phone from one person. Then what could be the possible answers for that? So for that, or what could be the possible replies for a particular message? So she planned to generate a set of candidate replies, and she wants to use the text embedding model to score the reply. So obviously every reply will have a certain score with them. The score with the highest value will be selected as the final reply to the user. So she will run the input message through the model to get the message embedding vector. Now in this particular case, first we have the message from one user. So we will have one embedding vector for this. Okay, this needs to be embedded and given to the model. Then we will have embedding for different replies. Okay, these are the reply embedding. We will have embeddings for reply also, right? And then you will be calculating the similarity score between the message and the replies. The reply which has the more similarity score towards this message will be the final message. Now while doing this, she saw that there was an association of occupation and the gender. Again, the same gender biasness she observed. So ideally, what was her objective? Her objective was, let's say I got this message on my phone. Right, so this is the message I got, that is the captain here today. Someone texted me this message. So first I will create the embedding for this, because again I want my model to understand this particular sentence, and the model can only understand this by creating a embedding vector. So model created this embedding for me. Now the reply could be yes she is or yes he is. So these are the two replies which is possible in this case. So let's say she again calculated the embedding for this reply and the embedding for this particular reply, and these are the embeddings here. Now she will calculate the similarity, the cosine similarity, that how much this embedding is closer to this embedding and how much this embedding is closer to this embedding. So see, so in this case, she observed that the embedding, that the score of yes she is 0.7, and for score yes he is, it is 0.27. So when ideally you see everything is same here, the only difference is between the he and she value. So for he the value is 0.27, which is greater. So it means the model somehow relates the word captain to he, that captain can only be a male. And then after that, what she does, she calculates this embeddings or this score for every occupation that is there in her maybe data set. So she observed that for these professions, uh, the female biasness was there. The highest female bias was in these all professions. Means whenever word like maid, waitress, and midwife, all these words were there in the sentences, the female rate was very high. Female score was very high, and for male, she observed that these particular values, these particular occupations were having more values for the male. So obviously she observed that there is high female and male bias in my messaging in my this app which I am trying to develop. So maybe now in this particular case, maybe the embedding that she is using, like they have claimed, she used the universal sentence encoder. So maybe the embedding which she is using, there is biasness in this embedding only. Forget about the data set first. In the embedding only, there is some biasness, and that's why the biasness was reflected in the scores also. And if there is problem in embeddings only, then obviously when you calculate the similarity, the one which has the highest score will be reflected, and that's how biasness will be there in your system. So again, this was one of the case where she observed that there is very much bias in my model. So again, if she want, she can go ahead with this technique where the model is actually model has the bias, but still the model is performing good, but it has bias in that. So if she wants, she can go ahead with this, or she might uh, go ahead and try any bias mitigation technique, or so that the effect of bias may be downstream in her model. So she has both the option to do. So again, the question is that, will AI be completely unbiased? So technically, if you see, we have seen lots of evaluation matrices, we have seen lots of fairness tool and transparency tool. We talked about different types of biases and so on. So maybe with the help of those algorithms, tools, and everything, we might get a bias-free software. Okay, but however, if you look at the real world, we don't expect AI to be completely unbiased anytime soon, because again, AI can be as good as data, and people are the ones who create data. Again, everything is coming to us only, everything is uh, dependent on the humans itself. We are creating the data, and based on that data, the models are getting trained. So if there is biasness, the replies, or the you can say the questions, the replies, the text that we post on internet, obviously there is some biasness there. That's why maybe the biasness are creeping into the models. Maybe we don't have that much sufficient data available on internet. Maybe the captains, which the word, whenever the captain words is written on the internet, maybe majorly the in the data set he word is being used. So maybe we usually, praise, or we usually tweet about the male captains there. That's why the model couldn't find any she word or any female captain there. So maybe we are majorly focused into the male captains of any, maybe any team, any particular sport. So that's why maybe the model is also not getting enough patterns for the female captain. Or maybe if we talk about words like cooking, so maybe for cooking, what we usually post, or we usually use the word as she or any female. That's why the model are learning that cooking is somehow related to a woman, a female candidate, that way. So that's how the biasness is being creeping into the machines because of us only. So again, we can only just try to minimize it by performing the test on the data, on the algorithm. And you never know, maybe we humans, we are not able to remove the biasness in us, but maybe some tools, because of some techniques, some new research, the algorithms which are being developed, they might be biased free, which could be a very positive thing for the humanity, that at least the biasness or the negative part that is there inside the human, that is being not reflected in the machine. So if that thing happens, that will be very good, and that will be a completely different side of AI. So with this, I finish this particular topic also, biased in AI system. Now, one important thing